Hey comic lovers, EMoney and the old man back up with you again with Thor, the dog of thunder. He's getting bigger all the time, about to outgrow his suit.
How can he not get bigger? Look, he's like a horse.
Right? So before we get started today, don't forget to hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and if you like what we're doing, don't forget to hit the like button. Alright, so today we are talking about some of our favorite comic book story arcs. So
Got a bunch of them too.
Yep.
I don't know how many you're going to let me talk about.
Well, we don't want to do the reading for you, but we want to tell you a little bit about each of our favorite story arcs and, why we recommend them to you guys. All right? So, Star-Lord was a selfish bastard who didn't know self-control, and this is Back Issues. All right, comic lovers, so let's get into it. We are each going to give you our top 5 favorite comic book story arcs, each starting with number 5. So let's count them down.
How are we going to say who goes first?
Regular way?
Absolutely.
All right. I go first.
He always goes first.
He always shoots rock. All right, so my number 5, World War Hulk X-Men. Now, World War Hulk is an event which encompasses the entire Marvel Universe. Events leading up to it is members of the Illuminati, which are leaders of all the major groups in the Marvel Universe, Reed Richards, Professor Xavier, Tony Stark, Namor, Doctor Strange, and Black Bolt. They all decide that the Hulk is too dangerous to remain on Earth. His destructive nature endangers the life of everyone on Earth. So they put him in a rocket and they send him up into space, planning to send him to a peaceful planet where he can live out the rest of his days.
Sounds like a good plan.
Sounds like it, but things don't go according to plan.
They never do.
The rocket goes off course, ends up on a warlike planet where the Hulk becomes a gladiator. He moves from gladiator and becomes king. He even takes a wife. But then the rocket ship that brought him to that planet explodes, killing his wife. And he believes that the Illuminati planned for the rocket to explode and planned on killing him. So he comes back to Earth with a bone to pick with members of the Illuminati.
Well, yeah, he's not happy.
Yeah. And he brings an army with him, and pretty much every Marvel superhero out there stands in his way. So then you take it from World War Hulk X-Men, where he comes looking for Charles Xavier. So he comes to the mansion and wants to kill Xavier, and almost all of the X-Men aren't there. The X-Men are, I think, they're in New York battling the Hulk's armies. So the only people who are there are Hank McCoy, Beast, and members of the Young X-Men, the students. So Hank says to them, Hulk's coming. I can't ask you guys to stay and fight. And before Hank even finishes his request, they're all stepping up saying, we're with you. We're not going anywhere. Just right in the fields. So it begins with, Hulk, boom, 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 on the door. Hank answering the door and be like, hello, Bruce. And, Hulk is like, get out of the way, McCoy. And, Beast says, I can't do that, Bruce. Wasn't asking. And just slaps him aside. So this sets off a huge fight between the Young X-Men. And, these guys, they step up. They earn their place. And it, events follow. It leads to a massive battle between Hulk and pretty much the majority of the canon of X-Men. And it's just an incredible fight to battle between the two sides. And I highly recommend World War Hulk entirely, but especially this is the one that really got to me, World War Hulk X-Men.
My turn?
Your turn.
All right. My number 5 spot is written by your old buddy Frank Miller.
Yeah, I want to make something very clear. I've said some things about Frank Miller on this show, but I do not hate Frank Miller altogether, okay? I mean, as a comic book fan, you would have to be insane to hate Frank Miller, like everything he's done.
Pretty much,
yeah. I have had issues, no pun intended, with a lot of Frank Miller's stories. Mainly Batman and Robin, the Boy Wonder, with Jim Lee. And I hate that I didn't like that story because I love Jim Lee, but I just took issue with a lot of his choices regarding Batman in that story.
I don't think you like Batman Returns either.
Dark Knight, I had
Dark Knight Returns.
Dark Knight Returns. I didn't like parts of that. I didn't hate it altogether, but I didn't like parts of that. The Batman and Robin story, like, I didn't like most of that. I'm sorry to say, but I do not hate Frank Miller as a whole. Okay, just want to be clear.
Back on track here.
Okay.
So my fifth pick is the Daredevil Born Again storyline that was written by Frank Miller and drawn by Dave, and I'm going to butcher his name, Mazzucchelli. Came out in 1986. It was in Daredevil issues 227 through 331. I'm sorry, through 231. And basically, Karen Page, Murdoch's secretary and love interest, decided to leave the law firm, go off into acting. Well, she did and was successful at first, and then she tanked. I mean, bottom fell out of her career. Next thing you know, she's in Mexico. She's addicted to drugs and desperate. She finally, to get a heroin fix, she sells Daredevil's identity as Matt Murdock for the fix. Well, eventually, as information tends to do, that information gets to the Kingpin. And we all know the Kingpin wouldn't use something like, yeah, he does. Yeah, he absolutely, he goes after Murdoch and ruins him. Cost him his law firm, his home, blocks all financial things he's got going, just absolutely puts him in the gutter. And it kind of reminds me of the Batman Bane storyline, where Bane just breaks Batman physically, emotionally, mentally, and destroys him, and then we get to see Batman come back from that. Same thing here. We get to see Murdoch come back against his absolute physical, mental ruin, and he comes back from it. And it's just great storytelling. It's my fifth favorite.
Okay. All right, so on to my number 4. I got another X-Men story for you. Astonishing X-Men by Joss Whedon, who, if you don't know, if you've been living under a rock, he's pretty much the Lord of the Geeks. He has given us such things as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Firefly. It's a sore spot, Firefly. He gave us the first Avengers movie, and he also gave us this, Joss Whedon, Astonishing X-Men. And in this story, a lot of things have changed in the Xavier mansion. Xavier's gone, and Emma Frost, of all people, is the leader of the X-Men. And it involves a lot of story development between Emma and Cyclops, and then Wolverine. Also, Kitty Pryde, who, through several scenes, in case there was any doubt in your mind, it pretty much cements her as a genuine badass. And it also introduces a new character who I really like, called Armor. She's a student at the mansion who has the power to make like kinetic shields. Is their mutant power? It has like force fields that kind of look like armor around her, and she kind of becomes Wolverine's sidekick. He had Jubilee for a while.
Jubilee looked too much like Robin, and fortunately she wasn't the sidekick for long. Thank goodness. But go ahead.
I like Jubilee more than he does. But she becomes his sidekick, and there's a lot of tension in the mansion, obviously, because for one, Kitty has a lot of history with Emma. With when she was a villain, and obviously does not trust her, and relationship between Emma and Cyclops, which Wolverine doesn't like. Jean Grey's dead by the time this story starts, and Cyclops is in a relationship with Emma, and there's all kinds of great relationships and development between the characters in this story. So if you want to start off reading X-Men, this is a good place to start. Astonishing X-Men Volume 1 trade. So,
all right, so my pick number 4. Captain America, the first Avenger, Not sure why they call him the first Avenger. He doesn't show up till Avenger issue 4, but at any rate, Captain America is my favorite Marvel character. This guy is my favorite DC character. And we're going to talk about Batman Year 1. Same creative team as the Daredevil storyline. It's Frank Miller, drawn by David Mazzucchelli. It came out in 1987. It showed up in Batman issues 404 through 407. It takes place, let's see, Bruce Wayne has come back from traveling around the world being trained. He's in his mid-20s, and he starts his career as Batman in Gotham. You also see a young James Gordon as he joins the Gotham City Police Department. Great storytelling. It's one of those things where if you've never liked Batman, then you should read this and give it a shot.
They took a lot of this for Batman Begins, right?
Yeah, I would say so,
yeah.
Sure. You also see trickles of it in the TV show Gotham.
Yeah.
But that's my pick number 4.
All right, number 4. All right, so now we're on to my number 3. So if you're just starting off reading comic books, if you're a young reader, and you don't really know where to begin, especially if you want to get into Spider-Man, well, if you want to get into it, this is where I recommend you start.
You're really going to start people off in an alternate universe?
Yes, because this has some
Why not?
This is some of the best Spider-Man writing I've ever seen.
It is good.
Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1. This is a retelling of Spider-Man's origin from the radioactive spider to the death of Uncle Ben to his awkward years as a teenager in high school, his relationships with girls, friends. I mean, this pretty much has it all. And it's so relatable, which is one of the great things about Spider-Man from the beginning with Stan Lee and Ditko. And, you can just relate to all the awkwardness that he goes through as a teenager, aside from the superhero stuff, but his relationship with girls and his, bullies. He's still got Flash Thompson giving him a hard time. And it's everything that you could hope for in a Spider-Man story. It's what you would expect Spider-Man to be. So, Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1. Highly recommend. Number 3.
Okay, back to me. So, let's switch it up a little bit. Let's get away from Marvel and DC guys, and let's go to Image Comics.
Okay.
And I'm going to talk about Astro City, also known as Kurt Busiek's Astro City, because basically he dreamed it up. There's a lot of different volumes. I pretty much liked all the early ones. As it got later in the series, it wasn't as good. Still worth reading, but the early ones were incredible. And the name of this storyline is Life in the Big City. You get to meet a lot of new characters because, let's face it, none of them are DC and Marvel, so most of us are familiar with the characters from other universes. So we meet Samaritan, which is Astro City's version of Superman. This is a guy who wants to fly for the sheer joy of flying. He just wants to soar. Unfortunately, that's a power that he uses as a mode of transportation. Ooh, somebody's in trouble. I got to get over there. Flies over there. Oh, there's an earthquake. Got to go over and help. Flies over there. Never gets to just fly for the enjoyment of it, and that's his sincerest wish. And one of the other offbeat yet extremely interesting characters is the Hangman. This is a guy who seems to haunt just one area of town. I think it's called the Hill. And he basically floats around. He's got a burlap sack over his head and a hangman's noose around his neck. And obviously, he's some kind of a ghost. He's been around for like a century. And there's other characters just as interesting. If you want to try something different, there you go, Astro City.
All right. So we're down to my number 2, and I don't have the trade here. I need to get it back.
Yeah, you do.
Yep. I have another Batman story for you. Batman No Man's Land. Now, if you watched Gotham, they tried to recreate this story in the final season, and it was good.
They did a good job.
Yeah, but it does not hold a candle to the story in the comic books. Now, full disclosure, this is not a quick read. You know, there's a lot of stuff you have to read in order to appreciate the full story. First, you have to get the trade Batman Cataclysm, which is the initial event that starts No Man's Land. It's the earthquake. Earthquake hits Gotham City. A lot of devastation. A lot of people scrambling to find their loved ones, survive, and obviously a lot of the villains and criminals in Gotham take advantage.
I'll tell you what. If you're not familiar with Batman, this is a way to get introduced into one of the best rogues galleries in comics.
Absolutely. So you have to read Batman Cataclysm, and then there's Road to No Man's Land, between the initial earthquake and when the government declares Gotham No Man's Land. And this is what happens is the devastation is pretty severe. And the government decides that Gotham isn't salvageable. It's not even worth rebuilding. So they give the citizens of Gotham a deadline to get out of the city, to get off the island. And anyone who's left in Gotham after that is cut off. They blow the bridges, they mine the river around the island.
Nobody in or out.
Nobody gets in or out. And anyone who's left in Gotham after that is on their own. So that's Road to No Man's Land. Then there are 5 volumes of the actual No Man's Land. And after Gotham is cut off, they are left to fend for themselves, anyone who's left behind. And if at the very beginning there's a map they show you of the island, of the different territories that gangs and different groups have claimed as their own. They have say 10 blocks of one part of the city that they control. You have the bad guys, different gangs and villains, but also you have a lot of good guys like the GCPD have claimed their own territory, and they're fighting to take back the city block by block. And it is an incredible story with lots of allies of Batman fighting to take back Gotham and the GCPD, and the villains from pretty much like all of the major players from Batman's Rogues Gallery play a part in this story. So if you want to commit to a bit of a long but amazing read, highly recommend Batman No Man's Land.
It has one of my favorite versions of the Penguin in it.
Yes.
Excellent way to portray that character. All right, so I'm up with my number 2. Well, I think everybody out there has probably become familiar with the Infinity Gauntlet, which is Marvel's big deal, end of the world storyline that y'all know what it's about. But DC did Crisis on Infinite Earths. In fact, in the Arrowverse on TV, they did a pretty good job of their version of Crisis on Infinite Earths. But at any rate, back to the comic. Came out in 1985. It was a 12-issue series. It was written by Marv Wolfman and drawn by the incomparable George Perez, one of my favorites. I guess I got a lot of favorites, but George is up there. So Marv Wolfman was fed up with all the DC multiverse. Earth 2, Earth 20, Earth 17, Earth X, Earth Prime. It was just ridiculous. So he created a storyline where the Anti-Monitor starts destroying all the other universes, consuming them. And the Monitor, the good guy, starts gathering heroes to try and stop the Anti-Monitor. I mean, you've got several different Supermen. There's a lot of some seriously major characters die in this storyline. And Wolfman cleans house a little bit. He gets rid of some people. He also introduces some people. At this point, DC had recently acquired Charlton Comics and all their characters. So in like one panel, he shows a guy called the Peacemaker. Now, if you haven't heard of Peacemaker, see our episode number 3. You going to put a link in there?
I'll put a link, yeah.
So go to the link, watch the episode. I talk about the Peacemaker, who's going to be played by
John C.
in the next Suicide Squad movie. Pretty interesting character. But at any rate, Wolfman brings in some new guys, gets rid of some old, merges all the universes together, and it's just a really good read with some really good artwork.
Okay, so number 2. So that brings me to my number 1. And, not surprisingly, I have another Batman one for you.
Oh, no, not Batman.
Yeah, Batman again. How about that? This is Batman Hush. This is a masterpiece collaboration between Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee.
There's some talent there.
Mm-hmm. It starts off, innocently enough, with Batman thwarting a heist by Killer Croc. But from that one event, it spirals into a big conspiracy between Batman and some of his greatest villains. And Batman figures out that someone is manipulating things from behind the scenes trying to get to him. And he doesn't know where it's going to take him, but it just keeps going back and forth. And at first, it doesn't seem to be connected, but Batman, world's greatest detective, starts to figure it out. And it leads to a big fight between Batman and one of his greatest allies. It's pretty iconic. And there are just so many layers to this conspiracy because just when you think you have it figured out, there's more to it.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at figuring out plot lines ahead of most people, but no, not this time.
No. I mean, you think, okay, this guy's the mastermind behind all this. But nope, not him. He was just another pawn in the real mastermind's game. So if you want a combination of great writing and artwork and a masterful Batman story, highly recommend Batman Hush. My number 1 pick.
Good pick it is.
Mm-hmm.
My turn?
Your turn.
My number 1. This is an Elseworld story. It's called Kingdom Come. It came out as a 4-issue miniseries in 1996, which is kind of funny because we just did an episode about how bad comics were in the 90s, and yet several of these story arcs are from the 90s. You'll put a link.
I'll put another link.
Another link. All right. So basically, this is written by Mark Waid, one of my favorite writers. He does such good work. And probably in my top 5 all-time artists, Alex Ross. I think I mentioned him in one of the other stories.
Mm-hmm.
But this time, Alex Ross helped write it and did the artwork for it.
Right.
It's a beautiful book. The basic plot line is Superman threw in the towel. He's been gone for like a decade.
Mm-hmm.
But things have gone to hell in a handbasket. The modern day heroes are violent, if you can even call them heroes. The villains are even more intense. I mean, I remember a quote from the Riddler one time where he said, "We didn't used to kill people." Of course, that's going way back.
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, Wonder Woman goes and recruits Batman, brings him out of retirement. Bats will have nothing to do with him because Batman is pissed at Supes for leaving everybody else holding the bag. So Superman comes back without support from his best bud, and they create this super prison. And they go out and they find these heroes and villains who are
Gone too far.
okay, and they arrest them or grab them, capture them, and put them all in the same prison, which probably isn't the best decision in the world.
And I remember the heroes they lock up, they try to re-educate them.
Try it. But at any rate, toward the end of the storyline, there's one of the most classic battles between Superman and a guy whose name I'm not going to tell you. But it is a really, really great battle. Great story. This is basically a masterpiece in both art and storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my
number 1. All right. So, and these are just our top 5 picks. I mean, there is no shortage of great comic book stories out there.
Well, why don't you put up our honorable mentions?
Yeah, let's throw up our honorable mentions. Other great stories you should check out if you've already read our top 5. Most of them probably worth reading again.
Absolutely. And some of these, they're not going to appeal to everybody.
Yeah.
But there's been a couple like, you probably see Infinity Gauntlet on there, V for Vendetta, Lock and Key that they've done movies or TV shows
Mm-hmm.
about. So somebody besides EMoney and myself thought they were worth another look.
Yeah.
But yeah, check them out, pick them up. You can probably find them at your at your local comic shop. And that's all I got.
All right, so what do you guys think? Did we miss anything? What are some of your favorite comic book story arcs?
How are they going to tell us?
They can tell us in the comment section.
What's that?
Yeah, the comment section is open. You guys can write into it, all right?
I mean, they can actually make comments?
Yes, they can comment.
Oh, they won't do it.
Let us know what you guys think, all right? So what do you say we head back up to the garage and see what Thor's up to? Hey, comic lovers, so we're back out here for our Stump the Old Man segment. So,
oh boy.
Last week you were 1 for 3, so we're going to see if we can stump the old man twice in a row, all right?
You're never going to forget 1 for 3, are you?
All right, Thor, you ready? Ready to be the judge in case there's a
Oh, you're talking to the dog again. Oh, okay. Thought you were asking me if I was ready, but
I assume you're ready since you're here. You're standing here, sitting here. All right. First question. How many times is Selena Kyle referred to as Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises?
I'll be honest, I have no idea. But I'm going to fudge a little bit and go by the fact that you asked me that question, so it must be something unexpected. So I'm going to go with none, 0, final answer.
That is correct. She is never called Catwoman in the film. So 1 for 1. So, Dad, for that, you get a treat.
Oh, finally. Give the dog one.
And Thor, you get 1 too.
Of course.
Just for being a good boy.
He is a good boy. Sometimes.
All right. All right, question number 2. We have Thor here, so we're going to do another animal-related question.
What is it with number 2? Number 2's always got something to do with the dog.
Some kind of theme for Thor here.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
All right. Name the Inhumans teleporting bulldog.
So it really is a dog question. Well, there was this ginormous bulldog that most of the time hung around with Crystal, kind of her protector, but yeah, it teleported. And that beast's name was Lockjaw.
Lockjaw. He was a creation of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and he first appeared in Fantastic Four number 45. And he could teleport himself and anyone around him anywhere he wanted.
Good power to have for a dog.
Yep. So,
time to go to the dog park.
Oh. We got another treat for Dad here. And just so Thor doesn't feel left out, 1 for him too. All right, 2 for 3, so you've already won. So this one is just for the icing on the cake.
No, this is for pride and honor.
Okay. All right, number 3. Facing the destruction, sorry. That's part of the answer, sorry. The question is, who is Norrin Rad?
You can probably tell from the smile that I know the answer. The World Eater Galactus needed a herald. Somebody to fly ahead and find planets for him. So when he came to Norrin Rad's planet and was going to eat that planet, Norrin Rad sacrificed himself, volunteered to be his herald. He is the Silver Surfer.
Okay, that is correct, and you pretty much said all of my explanation after the answer, so I don't really need to go into more detail.
I'm
the
just
Silver
that
Surfer.
Good.
3 for 3. All right, so you get 2 treats.
Not you, me. I'm getting 2 treats.
All right, so he wanted this one, perfect score. So we're gonna see if we can stump the old man next week.
Nope.
All right, comic lovers, that about does it for this episode. But before we go, let's talk a little bit about what we're gonna get into next week. And next week, we are talking about some of our favorite comic book artists.
No, I can do that.
All right. And I haven't finished a list yet, but I'm pretty sure the list will include such artists as Jim Lee, maybe a little bit of Alex Ross, maybe even some Steve Ditko, I don't know. But yeah, and...
I'm thinking Stranko.
Oh, okay. Also good. Hey, boy. He's excited about next week, too. All right, guys, see you next week. Excelsior.
True believers, be safe.